Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Today, we're one day out from AEW Double or Nothing. Last night was just, in my personal opinion, an absolute banger of a pay-per-view. We have so much to talk about it, and I'm so excited to get into everything. I mean, seriously, that pay-per-view was like 4.5 hours long, but it felt like it flew by, at least to me. But somebody else whose opinion I want to get on everything today is Clark Taylor. How are you today, Clark?
I'm doing well. First and foremost, though, I do absolutely want to wish everybody in the U.S. a happy Memorial Day. Specifically, thank you to all of our veterans, anybody who served. It means the world to us, especially WR Zone, Savannah Gall. Absolutely monster shout out. Hope you're having fun on this Monday. Thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it so much. We could not be having this much fun without you and what everybody sacrificed who served.
Absolutely no doubt about that. And yeah, of course, last night, AEW Double or Nothing, it kicked off with Roderick Strong defending the International Championship against Will Ospreay. And I mean, obviously going into this match, it's a Will Ospreay match. We know it is going to be insane. But Clark, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. What did you think about this opening contest?
So I truly enjoyed it. I loved it. Start to finish, it was awesome. There's that little moment, we kind of talked about it on the pre-show with Taven and the referee, that little funky, little clunky, whatever you'd like to call it. But I think I said stop it 4 times when Ospreay had certain spots. It's just like, stop. What in the world? Every now and again, you just forget. It's not just the in-ring psychology. It's bell to bell, he's as good as it gets, and he's as innovative as it gets. Even that little spot, just taking the top off the guardrail, I thought was super cool, like peeling that the rubber piece off of the top of it over there in the corner. The guy doesn't really miss. The match was off the charts, other than the one little moment. I have no complaints here. This thing was, in the ratings, I believe it was a 4.75, and I thought deservedly so. Right? It was, yeah. I mean, just as good as you could ask for in a match to open the show, no less. Right? Like it's just outstanding. I don't have enough good things to say about both Ospreay and Roddy Strong when it comes to this match. Storyline wise, coming out of it would be my only concern.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good point. And we were watching it last night in a Zoom call, right? And Clark, it's right what you're saying. You know, every few minutes you kept just going, Will Ospreay. Like, I don't think we realize, like next to nobody else in the world can do that, and like we just expect it from him because he's that good.
It looks like an Olympic gymnast is one of the things I was saying last night. Like, seriously, he looks like his spatial awareness and body awareness is just unbelievable. Whether it's selling or offensively, you do not get athletes like this in pro wrestling all the time. So cherish it while it lasts, because we get really, really high quality athletes in pro wrestling, but this is a world class athlete with the mind for the business and the drive to chase it. So I can't help it. And I've been skeptical of Ospreay in the past. Didn't really understand the character at times, but man, am I sold on Will Ospreay. That guy is an absolute blue chipper. And athletically, I don't know if there's anybody in wrestling, maybe other than like a Ricochet, or you can count him on one hand how many people that can match him as an athlete.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is, it's true. The guy is just so underrated, despite the fact that, he's obviously like a main event, now a mid-card title guy, but he's a main event level caliber athlete, and yet he's somehow still underrated because we just come to expect it from him, and it is craziness.
Remember, this title did main event All Out nearly a year ago, though, so it's a little different in AEW, and that's a discussion for another time. I'm just saying, though, that is one of the most memorable AEW pay-per-view main events from last year, and it was this very title.
Yeah, no, that is true. That was a fantastic match. It really, really was. Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley. In fact, it was maybe my match of the year last year because of the story involved.
So
We have
cool.
Noah Stellon over on Instagram who's saying great review so far, boys. Thank you very much, Noah. We hope you're having a great day. We have Josh Markowitz in the comments over on YouTube. Shout out to you, Josh. And we have David Marge who's saying the whole pay-per-view was good. I absolutely agree. And Mart76 saying Roddy is reminding people that he's still pretty great too.
So true.
So, I mean, he's another person who's just ridiculously underrated. But talking about Roderick Strong, talking about the Kingdom, I'm going to bring in our next guest today, our next panelist, Anthony Ricciardi, because Anthony, I need to talk to you about Adam Cole, because Adam Cole, after Roderick Strong lost, came down to the ring. He got in the ring. He started cutting a promo with the rest of the Kingdom, just not in sight. But then, well, then the room went black, and then we saw a promo package from the MGM Grand Hotel of who then we later found out was MJF, and MJF is back. He signed a new deal seemingly in AEW. Anthony, I want to get your thoughts on this. What did you think of the return of MJF?
I mean, it's absolutely awesome to bring in Max, to keep Max, because he really is a once in a generation talent. I wasn't too crazy on how they brought him back. Just from logistically, okay, Adam Cole goes out there. There's no Kingdom members, which I thought was a little weird. And if you're going to have Max confront him, technically you didn't know Adam was going to be there. So I thought that kind of hurt it a little bit, and it was kind of just a blow off of like, yeah, he kicked him in the nuts and moved on. But Max came out in his 2002 Beautiful Day Triple H attire, and kind of delivered a promo in the midst, sort of MJF, sort of more Andrew Dice Clay. I didn't think it had the direction that MJF promo typically has. I thought it was great seeing him back, cutting the promo, but I don't think it really had a direction. I think that was something even David said during the watch along. It didn't really seem to have a direction. Him taking the shots at New Japan and Vince really didn't make it much sense to me, because him saying he doesn't need New Japan hasn't been relevant for a very long time. Like, realistically, it would be a step down if he would have went there. And Vince isn't even attached to WWE anymore. I think it would have made more sense if he would have said, I don't need Paul Levesque or any other Khan other than Tony Khan. Like, something like that, because it would have at least been more relevant. I thought would have worked. I'm curious to see where this goes. I'm assuming he's cleared. But, it would be interesting to see where this goes, because the guess would be Adam. The guess would be he's feuding with Adam, assuming Adam's cleared. So it'll be curious. I'm curious to see where this goes with Max. Like, where do you go with him at this point? Does he target Joe? Does he target Swerve, who has his title? Does he go somewhere else? It'd be interesting to see where he goes. It's a great signing by them to keep him. It's just a matter of, you got to use him right. You could sign the best talent in the world, but if you don't know how to use him and you don't use him in the right direction, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I think Max, it'd be very hard to screw Max up. And I'm hoping they deliver with this.
Yeah, it really is. When you have a talent as good as Maxwell Jacob Friedman, it really is hard to mess them up. I do agree. I will defend the New Japan line, and the reason I'll defend it is because obviously they're like basically, partners at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're about to do Forbidden Door. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, even though, we know that he was never going to New Japan,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't mind that line. But yeah, the Vince McMahon one was a little wild. But hey, maybe in a couple of years' time, he's going to do the bidding more for 2027 or whatever it'll be. And he's saying, I said Vince, not Paul Levesque.
I just mean, as far as the New Japan, like, if he would have went to New Japan, honestly, that would be a step down from AEW. Like, really, there was only one direction he could have went other than AEW, and that's WWE. So I thought the New Japan was like kind of punching down, because realistically, there was no chance that he was ever going to go there. It would have been ironic though that Tony took a lot of the New Japan talent, and somehow Tanahashi or somebody got Max.
That would be wild. Soul saying MJF needs to win the Owen Hart to then get a title shot against Swerve at All In. I mean, Soul, I thought your plan for All In was to have Ospreay versus Swerve. That's what I still want. But I do agree. MJF versus Cole, Forbidden Door, Long Island, 6 months after he was turned on. It lines up perfectly. It truly does. And I think that could be just. I said it would feed generations, and I think it will.
I think it's an awesome rivalry. I just don't think Max should have gotten his hands on Adam before then. Like, I think you needed to keep that space. That's my issue with him just immediately going in and getting revenge on Adam immediately.
Yeah. No, that's certainly, a fair point, no doubt about it. But we're going to have to wait and see. But now we need to move on to the next topic because we had another championship match, but this time it was a trios championship match. And for this, I'm bringing in Tommy. How are you today, Tommy? And also, what did you think about the Bang Bang Gang versus the Death Triangle for the trios championships last night?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thank you so much. Hope you guys are doing great. Again, happy Memorial Day to everybody. But as far as the Trios Championship match, I am a huge Jay White fan. I am a huge Bullet Club Gold, Bang Bang Gang, whatever iteration they are now, fan. And I mean, it was a fun little 6-man tag. It's never a bad match when you have the Lucha Bros on one side and the Gun Club and Jay White on the other. I really focused a lot on Colton and Austin, the Guns, last night. Like, their selling, their over-performative just style is very good. It's very fun. It lightens the matchup, and then you bring in the Ace and Jay White to clean up everything. And then, not to mention, Mr. Rockhard Juice Robinson comes back just from 30 minutes down the road from where I'm at. I was super stoked to see him back. He's been heavily missed with them, but I mean, overall, I thought it was a fun little match. It was great paced. It was great time. I want more Bullet Club Gold, Bang Bang Gang, whatever. I want more of them, and I think we're going to get it now that Juice is back. So overall, really dug the match. Really thought it was super fun. Lucha Bros are Lucha Bros. They're just phenomenal in the ring. Hopefully, Rey Fenix can stay healthy and get a singles run at some point because he deserves it. But yeah, I love the storytelling. Love the Bang Bang Gang going over, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure, Tommy. I know you're a big New Japan guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not liking this version of Jay White in AEW.
No.
It kind of feels like they've made him more of a comedy act, and I just don't like it.
He had a bit of this in New Japan when he was the leader of the Bullet Club and had a little bit more ruthless to him then, but he did have his, comedy heel type stuff where he would get out of the ring a ton. He would, do those little antics and stuff. But I would agree. I think it's a little amped up. I think they're a little bit more of a comedy type thing right now just because the Guns get the ass boy chance all the time, and they're kind of on that fence too. But I think that now that Juice is back, I think it sets up great for Jay to kind of spotlight himself a little bit more. I mean, him in any singles match is just fire. I mean, you put him with Swerve, it's going to be a banger. Put him with Will, it's going to be a bang. Like, I mean, he's just that good, and he's still young, and he's finding his way in America and the way that things go. So I think that he's on a good trajectory. I think that he'll be a main event guy again. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that he was, fighting for the belt and facing MJF. So I think he'll get back to it. I would like to see a little bit more ruthlessness from him rather than the comedy side. But I think where they're at as a gimmick right now with the Bang Bang Gang, not the Bullet Club Gold, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. That's a good point. I just miss those, those press conferences where if he lost or something, he'd go to the back, he'd start, ripping apart everything. That's the Jay White that I want, right? Where he's, he's smarter than everybody. He's, when things don't go his way, he loses it. That's the Jay White that I want. I don't want him to, be happy just being, trios champion stuck in the mid card. I want to see more from him. I want him to, on screen, I want him to not be happy unless he's in that main event spot. And I think he's got the talent to do so. The MJF rivalry, to your point, it wasn't too long ago, and it got bad, like a lot of bad reviews off people. I just hope that wasn't enough to put them off pushing Jay White, because I don't think that was a reflection of him at all. It was just one of those things where the feud didn't click for some people.
Right, I agree. I think, and I mean, personally, I love the feud. I love that Jay played the, I'm going to steal your belt heel. He's doing all this fun little stuff. I didn't think it had enough time to breathe. I thought it was very rushed and kind of like, we just got to get this in. But I thought with more time, it could have been really, really, really good. So yeah, there's potential there for sure for him to be that top guy once again. And I think, you have so many matches that set up with him perfectly again with, even throwing Moxley again, throwing Okada, throwing all these big names, and he can hang with all of them. So I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, let's hope so. And I mean, of course, as well, one of the issues with that feud was the fact that like part of it happened on Collision, part of it was on Dynamite, and it was at the moment where people was like stopping watching Collision too. So I felt like that derailed it as well. But Clark, I'm now going to bring you back in because I want to talk to you about a match which I really enjoyed last night. And listen, over the past year, basically since we've started this podcast, after it, every AEW pay-per-view, I almost always say, great show. The women's matches didn't get enough time. But guess what? For the first time since we've been doing this podcast, I think they got the perfect amount of time. I thought Toni Storm and Serena Deeb, these two ladies killed it. I really, really enjoyed this match. They got the time and they delivered. They showed why they deserved it. And yeah, I absolutely loved this. But Clark, did you?
Ben, before I get started here, you're the best graphic designer I know. And in the future, can I please get a black and white filter when I'm doing Toni Storm takes? I'm just asking. Like, I feel like that's not that tough. It would just make it electric, right? I mean, who knows? This match was awesome. Toni Storm is doing the best character work in all of wrestling, male or female, period. Like, it doesn't matter who she wrestles. And Serena Deeb's awesome. And there was some criticism as far as the build to this match leading into it about like, is Serena Deeb a worthy challenger necessarily? If you watch the match, it made the build make sense more in hindsight than it did before the bell rung for the start of the match. The match was sublime. Toni Storm was awesome in it. She has been since she adopted this character. Her transformation in the last couple of years, it is not that long ago. She was getting cake or was it pie in the face from Charlotte Flair on SmackDown as like a surfing Australian, like or whatever the gimmick with punk rock surfing Australian. I don't know. To go from that to like Sunset Boulevard, Marilyn Monroe classic and play it to a T. I mean, play it as good as anybody in Hollywood could. If we're making a throwback movie, how do you not cast Toni Storm? I'm afraid of losing her to Hollywood more than I am of losing her back to like WWE or any other promotion at this point. The character work is just off the charts. It's unbelievable how good she's been. The match over-delivered. And to your point, I'm so happy they gave them the time. It was deserved. It was an awesome match. I have virtually no complaints when it comes to the way that this match delivered, especially given the card placement. It wasn't in a spot where it was like the heat the crowd back up spot, and they still did. The crowd was hot for it. The crowd was into the match. Yeah, overall blown away. And Toni Storm, I cannot say enough good things about. Like, absolutely. I don't even have the words.
And after the event as well, I don't know if you've seen the press conference they did afterwards. She took out this letter, like she said it was an extract from her book or something that she's looking for publishers for, and she read like this. It was basically a not safe for work story, and you could just see Tony Khan next to her, like smiling and all that, and like trying to not like be awkward. And like she just started like touching him as she was reading it out, and like he was just like you could just tell he was getting like more and more hunts. Like,
what is
I
happening?
don't know how to react.
It's
and
so
Tanahashi, the New Japan president, Hiroshi Tanahashi, was sitting next to Tony Khan, and he's like, his face is just not changing the expression as well. It was just gold. This Tony Storm character, I mean, it's been brilliant. But what the floor has been up to this point, apart from like the Thunder Rosa match, has been the match quality. But
Yeah.
on this show, that was not a flaw. That was a strength. Let's just say that. Sonny Dalton and Sandy is saying the Tony Storm match was amazing. I agree completely. And he's bringing up the towel throw as well. That was an interesting moment.
So
Mariah
funny.
May was going to throw the towel in.
So funny. What if she does?
I mean,
well, and isn't that a shout out back to who threw in the towel on Cody never getting a shot in AEW for the world title? I love that subtle shout out to Max there. Because he actually did throw in that towel and rob Cody of ever having a world championship opportunity. I love it.
Oh, it was great. It truly, truly was. Mariah May, Tony Storm, all in London, Wembley. Let's do it.
Talk
It's
to
a
me.
no-brainer.
Yep, sign me up. I'm in.
Any day of the week, any time, any place, as long as it's London and as long as it's Wembley. Well, actually, I mean, I prefer Emirates Stadium personally, but anyway, that's a side note.
Whoa, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think Mariah May, the fact that Tottenham played there for a year while their stadium was being rebuilt, I think that is going to sour the experience a bit for Mariah May when, she wins the gold in Wembley Stadium. But anyway, let's now move on to talk about the match, which I'm going to be honest, this match was the match which I was the least excited for going into the event and coming out. It was the match which I guess I cared the least about. But it was still a really, really entertaining match. And that was Orange Cassidy versus Trent. Anthony, what did you think about this one?
When you look at the card, and this was something that we talked about during the watch along, I thought it had too many matches. If you're looking at matches to cut, this was probably one of them because this could have easily been on a Dynamite. I thought it was kind of an odd choice because they've been building this up about Trent's betrayal and Orange, and it's supposed to be heated rivalry. Yet it's a one-on-one match, no stipulation, no nothing. I thought that kind of hurt it because it felt less special, in my opinion. On a card, like pay-per-views are kind of supposed to be continuing stories, building up, blow-offs, stuff like that. And Orange is picking up the win. So it was kind of like, well, is that the end of the rivalry? Like, it was a very weird finish where Trent said he's done. I did like that they brought back Orange's Pixie music, which I thought was great. But again, it needed to have more heat. It needed more than just a one-on-one match because this could have easily been featured on Dynamite or Collision. Like, it really needed something extra. Now I get it. You didn't want to go too hardcore because, you had Jericho's thing that happened and obviously Anarchy happening that night. But I mean, would it have killed them to maybe do a strap match or something that was different than the others, or just not put it on the show? Just put it on a Dynamite main event on this week's Dynamite or something like that. I don't think it should have been on the card.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, Anthony. I agree with you completely. This needed a stipulation. They also probably shouldn't have done it a couple of weeks ago when they did it then.
Yes.
All of it, it didn't feel as big as it should have felt. It felt like a Dynamite match. It felt like, dare I even say, a Collision match, right? A bit better than a Rampage match, but not much.
I mean, it's like the equivalent of like somebody got injured and they couldn't do a match, so they threw in like a replacement match. That's what it kind of felt like. It did not feel like it belonged, even though it had a story, which is kind of odd.
And it's quite a big story too. The best friends have been together since the start of AEW. They've broken up now. Trent's turned on Orange Cassidy. I mean, they should feel like a big deal, but they kind of they failed. Like, that's what happened ultimately. They failed the story.
Yeah, Trent forced Chuck into retirement, as far as we know. I mean, unless something changes. So, like, there were stakes to this. And the big thing is, I'm going to go back to old school music and do a normal one-on-one match and beat you clean. Like, it didn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there completely. It's frustrating, but hopefully they do something to redeem this feud and to keep it going long term. Not to just do it straight away now, but hopefully
Mhm.
like maybe Trent disappears for a month, comes back with like more of an identity behind his heel character, and then they do something. But
Mhm.
this was disappointing. But still, the match itself was fine. It
Yeah,
should
it
feel
was a decent
bigger
match.
and
Yeah.
it should be more important. Yeah. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But Tommy, I want to bring you back in now because we were talking about earlier the fact that we're both fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Well, we had the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship not on the line, but an eliminator match for it as Jon Moxley took on Takeshita. The story of this match was Moxley's injured arm, and his selling was phenomenal all the way through until the last, 30 seconds when he firstly kicked out using that arm, and then he hit a Death Rider with it as well. But ignoring that, I absolutely loved that match. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like what they're doing with Moxley as the champion. I know he got some heat for defending it against Powerhouse Hobbs. So I thought it was smart to make this a eliminator match. But I mean, Takeshita's that dude, man. He is just so good. And Moxley did a really good job of putting him over, but still putting himself over and maintaining the power that is that NWGP World Heavyweight Championship, and I really enjoyed the match. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was very well paced again, and it was not a typical Moxley match where he's just kind of beating the crap out of somebody and then gigging a little bit and bleeding. So it was a nice change of pace. I did kind of find it funny that he kicked out with that shoulder. I also thought it was funny that when he's coming into the arena, they're all patting him on that shoulder when he's walking in, and there's no reaction to him being injured or anything like that. So I thought it was pretty funny to see that. But overall, I thought it was a really, really good match. It sets up really nice to have him face Evil at Dominion coming up. And I think that's going to be a really good match. I'm not a big Evil fan, but you got to have somebody go against Moxley, and I think that's a good plan. But as far as Takeshita, I mean, he puts out another really good match. He's comes off very strong, very good, and it's not a bad loss for him in any way. Like he still put himself over. Moxley put him over by injury, by showing that he was injured, and you still get a good Moxley win, and everybody goes home happy. So I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really good. I'm excited to see Moxley as New Japan champion. I think that he is going to do better things than somebody that's there right now. So I enjoyed it. I really like it. I think that he's off to do really good things. It'll be interesting to see what he does at Dominion. But yeah, I mean, overall from that match, if there's anything to take from it, that Takeshita is just that good. He is really, really fun and really, really good, and I like his character.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it is crazy at times. We forget, Takeshita has defeated both like Jericho and Kenny Omega as well. He's defeated two former AEW champions. And I kind of feel like they didn't probably follow up on that as well as they could have. But even still, like you said, next for Moxley is now Evil. You mentioned you're not an Evil fan. I don't think Evil has a single fan in the world.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but I mean, that'll be a match which is
Maybe his
happening.
mom.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe his mom probably roots for him.
I mean,
I
I
would
don't
hope
even
so.
know, to be honest with you, if any of his family are able to sit through one of his matches. It's the same every time, it's just whatever. But
Right.
it'll be interesting. I hate these eliminator matches. I say it all the time, but I
Same.
absolutely hate them. But we do have a comment here from Isabella is a princess who's saying whoever says that AEW is predictable or bad are just haters. I mean, once upon a time, but not at the moment.
Agreed.
They are killing it right now, especially with the women's division with Tony and Mercedes. I completely agree with you there. I mean, there are certain things, obviously, every company does which are bad and predictable. But I mean, they're getting on a good run again, like over the last couple of months, and this pay-per-view, it solidified that for me personally. I
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
do think it did.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll be, I'll touch on the Monet match and my thoughts about that, but I mean, they did a really good job of building the women and everything. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is going to be interesting to see. There's no doubt about that. But now I'm going to bring you in, Clark, because, well, we've got to talk about the person who you're a major fan of,
Leader
and
of the fan
that,
club.
of course, yeah, the leader of the fan club, and that, of course, is
Self-appointed.
the self-appointed leader of the fan club, and that is Huck, because you guys better get your textbooks out, because last night we all learned something from Chris Jericho, the learning tree. And I mean, it's such a pleasure to be able to see Chris Jericho on our screens. We barely get to see him, and I mean, he barely ever wins a match. So seeing, him winning one yesterday, I mean, I thought it was really, really selfless of him as well. I mean, he didn't pin Huck. I mean, Shibata couldn't actually see him when he was being pinned because he had a trash can on his head. So Jericho protected everybody really, really well. I mean, I think in many people's eyes, this might be a 7-star matchup. Chris Jericho proving once again why he's the best wrestler to ever walk on the earth. And just overall, a really, really selfless match. And Clark, I don't know about you, but I just learned a lot about life from this match.
It's definitely not the For the World title. We know what the F stands for. And at the end of the day, Chris Jericho and this new character work, I'm going to be serious for a second here, has been excellent. Not what I expected, right? He's one of those guys that has an ability to adapt, and he got something right here. Getting rid of Judas, getting rid of all of that, going to the Lionheart gimmick, not quite working. Okay, let's try again. Let's figure something else out. And it's gold. It's entertainment gold. It's been great. I do understand how he won this match, but he beat Shibata. And I'm not done until I mention that the Hookster was robbed. All the Hookamaniacs that made the pilgrimage to Vegas to watch the Hookster reclaim the title that is rightfully his were let down last night, but it was not the Hookster's fault. It was Shibata's fault. This is Shibata's fault for his involvement in this match. The Hookster will be back. Chips, vitamins, prayers, and hip tosses, and then a little bit of red rum, and we'll be all good. Hookamania will run wild again, and he will reclaim that title that's rightfully his and rename that title that's rightfully his. Ben, what do you think about that?
I mean, Clark, clearly you've not been watching enough Chris Jericho, because whatever textbooks you're reading, they're clearly incorrect. They're historically incorrect, because it is the For the World Championship. And also, never again disrespect Shibata like that. Shibata can do no wrong.
All
unless
his fault. If
anywhere
he's
near
not
his
out
neck.
there kneeing people in the face and stuff, the Hookster chokes Chris Jericho out like it's nobody's business, walks out of that building with the title that's rightfully his, and then renames it.
Is it?
Curse word, the world title.
I don't like it when people rename titles, different names. I prefer when they
reclaims the
historical.
name. It's not renames, it's reclaims the original name. It's not the For the World.
I don't know what textbook you're reading, but
I am so close to saying the F word on this podcast, Ben. Be careful here. I almost let it slip twice.
I mean, all I can tell you, Clark, right, is Chris Jericho, the learning tree himself. I've read his textbooks, and I'll tell you what, in those is clearly documented that has introduced the For the World Championship back in the days of ECW. I don't know what you're on about.
It is the Bleep the World Championship, and everybody knows it. And the Hookster is the one who deserves it. The Hookster is the rightful owner of that title. He's the rightful champion. He's the best thing going. Although I've got to be honest, these last 2 matches with the Hookster around this Jericho scenario, he hasn't had the proper quaff. And I think that might be what's throwing off his game. If he gets the quaff right, I actually think that's when Hookamania will truly run wild again. That's where we're really going to get Hook at his finest.
Absolutely. No, you are right. It's all the hair. The hair's to blame. It's all the hair's fault. But now let's move on, because I want to
Lord Farquaad territory, man. He used to have the quaff of the century.
It's not good, is it? Anthony, I want to bring you in now, right? Because I want to talk to you about a match which I loved, the barbed wire steel cage match. I'm usually not a fan of, cage matches when the cage breaks, but here I thought it made sense because that double turn was just done so well. It was brilliant. But I mean, what did you think about this barbed wire cage match? Malachi Black versus Adam Copeland for the TNT Championship.
Just one thing before I get to that. It is kind of ironic, and Ben, you may not know this. Jericho kind of got the idea of renaming a title from his original tag partner back in the day, Lance Storm, because in WCW he started renaming titles after he won them. So I think that's where he got it. Copeland against Malachi is a great matchup because it's two characters that have embraced the dark side. And in very much, Copeland's on this farewell tour. It started when he came back with the Rumble, and now in AEW, he's kind of checking off these like farewell tour boxes. I was surprised seeing the Brood name on the Tron. I don't know if he bought the rights to it or AEW did. I didn't know that was even out there to be able to be purchased, or I'm assuming he must have, or Tony did. I thought that was kind of cool. It's a match that you expected to be bloody and violent. Like the whole show had moments of bloody and violence, but you knew this was going to be. I mean, it's a prison yard match essentially with the barbed wire top and throughout. And they delivered. The double turn was great. It would have been kind of ironic, considering that Copeland was leading Judgment Day, and I believe Brody King took a shot at that group. It would have been kind of funny. I thought that was well. The only thing that I would have to say negative about the match was Edge's dive. I understand the perspective of it's his neck. He wants to be careful the way he did it. He didn't need to do it. And to me, like, I looked at it, my whole thought, and I said this when we were watching it, he could have blew out both knees. Like, he could have blew out his knees, his ankles. Like, he landed, like, even if he touched the table a little bit, that's still a 20-foot drop, give or take. And, the thought went through my head when I saw it was back in the day, Jim Cornette was in a scaffold situation, and somebody was supposed to catch him, and they didn't, and he dropped. And I think he messed up his kneecaps, if I'm not mistaken, and needed surgery and stuff like that. Edge is up there in age. He doesn't have much left in the tank. I think it was an unnecessary risk, and if that puts him on the shelf, that could be a career ender for him again. Because I don't know whether or not you come back from that if you really mess up your knees. But I think the only other negative thing, I didn't like the crown of barbed wire either. Personally, I just didn't like it. I think that could bring a lot of negative press if somebody gets wind of that. Because I remember ECW when they crucified the Sandman, same thing. I don't know if that was a smart move. But overall, I think they delivered. Both guys absolutely delivered. It was a great match. Copeland going over. I'm curious to see where it goes if the rivalry continues. I don't know how you continue after a barbed wire steel cage match, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do hope it kind of is the end of the feud, and like you said as well, it was not only would it be ironic the fact that obviously Brody King took a shot at Judgment Day, but also it just seemed so reminiscent of Judgment Day for a second. I just saw it flash before my eyes once again.
Oh, and it was great to see Gangrel too.
Oh yes,
I forgot about that. The reunion of Gangrel, that was checking off the box as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But now let's move on because I want to bring you back in, Tommy, because Willow, Mercedes Mone's AEW debut. We've been waiting for it for quite some time, but this match, well, it delivered and then some for me personally. Mercedes Mone, she is so good in between those ropes, right? And people doubt her a lot. But when she steps in the ring, she proves those doubters wrong. But what did you think about this match?
I thought it was great. I mean, the only criticism that I have has nothing to do with the match. It's just how they are valuing this TBS championship over their women's championship. That is the only difference or the only issue that I have with it. And clearly it's because they have a big name star in Mercedes Mone in this match. Had it not been her, it would have been flip flop probably, or you just have a double main event. But outside of that fact, Willow is a star, Mercedes is a star. It was a great match. It was just phenomenally done. I'm kind of surprised Monet went over, but also not really because she's definitely gonna go over. She has to go over. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the heel turn by Statlander and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but Statlander essentially and Stokely Hathaway. Thank you. That was it. And just really, really enjoyed how it went. It was a great spot for the match after a big, cage match. It slowed things down, but also picked it back up. It was just very well done. And I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see who challenges Monet next and really just, continue to push and continue to be the star that she is. I hope at some point we see Toni Storm face her or there's some sort of crossover or something, but it was awesome. It was a really, really great women's match. 2 out of 2 for the women this evening, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, this was not deliberate, by the way, the fact that I put you on matches today, which have all got some relevance to New Japan as well. I've only just realized that every match you've spoken about got a connection.
I loved it. I loved it.
But now let's move on because I want to bring you in, Clark, because I want to talk about Swerve Strickland versus Christian Cage, the AEW Championship. Now, we said this should probably main event, but of course, Anarchy in the Arena, it makes sense. There's at least a reason for it. But Swerve certainly does swerve when he drives, and he's swerved his way to victory in the match against Christian Cage. But the impressive thing about this match, right, it was a phenomenal match. But for a second, I genuinely believed that Christian Cage was going to win when they did that interruption. I thought it could have been game over. But what were your thoughts on it, Clark?
To be completely honest, it's crazy to me because we watched the match between Gunther and Randy Orton one day before, right? On King of the Ring. And it was all time. And we had these deep discussions about ring psychology and how great the psych was on that match. The pinfall, I'm not trying to get into the details of it, but my point is Christian Cage needs to be in the in-ring psychology conversation every time it's had. Somehow his name didn't come up on like the most sublime in the industry while we were having that convo on Saturday. It did on Sunday. I mean, like you said, Ben, this convinced me that Christian was going to get it done. I got nervous during the match because I was actively rooting for Swerve. That's hard to do. I watched so much pro wrestling. A lot of the times I kind of feel like I'm, not ahead of the game, but like I'm pretty confident in who's going to win a match or not. Swerve was maybe my most confident pick on the card outside of 1 or 2 others. And Christian made me not feel that way. Oh yeah. And then Swerve delivered bell to bell as he has since he's been in AEW and beforehand. But the push that he's gotten deserved. There was a lot of talk going into this about this could have or should have been the main event. I don't know that it necessarily matters with how high quality it was. Swerve will be main eventing AEW pay-per-views for a long time. It's one show. Anarchy in the Arena is a different deal. I know that's our next topic that we're obviously going to get into, but this is one of those deals where you have Christian Cage back after all these years, and he continues to deliver, and he continues to be underappreciated. We got to appreciate these two while we have both. Swerve is on fire. He's the deserved world champion. The right guy did go over, but that was absolutely paint by numbers beautiful. 475 or 5. I remember discussing it on the show, during the show, the watch party with everybody, and it doesn't matter to me. That thing was as entertaining as you could ask it to be. It could have main evented nearly any pay-per-view this year, and both delivered over the top. Also, shout out Nick Wayne and Nick Wayne's mom.
Absolutely. We've always got to shout out the patriarchy. I mean, you saw me, Clark. I was standing up for the entrance of somebody who's, as much of a great as Christian Cage is, the greatest father figure in the world, and also a future AEW champion, no doubt about it. But we've got a comment here from David Martin. Christian, Adam Copeland, and Gangrel were all on the card. That's an impressive stat.
Wild.
For sure. And he wanted Christian to win. I did too, but it's early in Swerve's reign and he deserves it. Chris Leclerc's pointing out that Bailey and Mercedes Mone are champions in the same year at the same time. I mean, it is wild that they...
Who had those two things on their bingo card? The whole brood will be on the exact same pay-per-view card in 2024. Oh yeah, and both Bailey and Sasha will be champions in 2024 in different promotions.
Companies.
Yeah. Who saw that coming? If you bet that one, you are a pro gambler.
Yeah, fair enough. And I agree with you, David. It really, really was a great show. But next I want to talk. I want to talk about this main event, right, guys? Because, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with it. And Anthony, I'm going to bring you in first. I mean, Anarchy in the Arena. It lived up to the name. It lived up to the hype. I mean, I could start to explain what happened in this match, but quite frankly, so much happened that, like, it's a struggle to even remember it all. Tony Khan rolling down the ramp after Jungle Boy being set on fire was my personal highlight. I was in stitches laughing for about 20 minutes after it. But also, Darby Allin was hung above the ring by his feet. He did a coffin drop off something. He got crashed into with a car for, I think, the third time in the space of 2 months. I mean, Anthony, it was
attempted vehicular manslaughter.
Anthony, I want to get your thoughts on what was just absolute anarchy, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yeah, I want to say, despite everything that Jack Perry has done to Tony Khan, I give him credit that seeing Jack in danger set on fire, he still felt the need to teach Jack stop, drop, and roll down the ramp. I got to give him credit for that. I mean, that's really selfless. But
you enjoyed that, inspired like Chris Jericho.
But no, I don't think it was that. But this match was exactly what it's supposed to be. It's anarchy. That's what it's supposed to be. The people that are complaining it's not a match, it's unwatchable. It's complete chaos. That's what it's supposed to be. And there was a story to it. Now, it had a little bit of everything. I mean, you had different music playing throughout the match, which I did call that they were going to play the Succession knockoff music. I did laugh that they spent the money for Final Countdown, which it's not 200,000, but I think it's like 50 grand or somewhere in that ballpark every time they play it, which is why they don't play it all the time. One of the things I said during the watch along was, I wonder if they're going to play that on loop, if you got to pay every time it replays. Like Clark mentioned, we saw vehicular manslaughter. Darby originally tried to drown Jack Perry in water. You had Darby come out with a flamethrower, which I never thought I'd be saying on a wrestling podcast. I said on Thursday show, I was like, well, it's not like he's going to set the Bucks on fire. Darby's more likely to set himself on fire. I feel like there was probably an argument backstage of going between Darby and Jack, which one of them was going to get set on fire, because they're both psychotic in that sense. Darby got hung by his feet, super kicks to the face with his already broken nose. I mean, it's like Darby's in a competition with Jeff Hardy and Mick Foley, who could get the most injuries in a small amount of time. In a matter of like two months, he broke his foot, broke his nose, got hit by a bus, and then everything that happened last night in the complete chaotic match. But the Elite needed to go over. You need to continue that. You can make the argument that it really wasn't the true team AEW because you didn't have Omega, you didn't have Moxley in it. Like, people that are synonymous with AEW, MJF, for example, you didn't have the heart and soul of it. I really don't. I mean, Darby certainly is. Danielson has become it, both on and off screen. But like as a whole, I want to see where this goes. The fact that Tony Khan's back from a broken neck that quickly. I mean, if you show the commitment of wearing the neck brace during the NFL draft, and then you come back like a few short weeks later and it's like nothing happened, fully sell the kayfabe if you're going to do it. That would be my only issue with that, but I am curious to see where it goes. But like I said, Tony Khan made it up for his selfless stop dropping and rolling down the ramp, which helped put Jack out. I mean, a wall and the fire extinguishers, but Tony tried.
He did his bit. We got Memsy in the chat saying probably the best Anarchy match I've seen, and he likes the fact that they followed through with the flamethrower, not just it wasn't just for show. I agree with that completely.
And Darby was licensed too. I mean, he
David
was.
Said it was wild.
Yes.
Josh Markowitz is saying the final countdown was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful as well when it was playing and they were fighting. Yeah. It was cool. And I didn't like it before when they've done other themes, but Final Countdown worked for it.
Final Countdown is a great song to play for that type of, like, there's certain songs I think you could play and make that work. Like, it worked with Moxley with Wild Thing because it's a wild match. So it kind of works. But Final Countdown is great for that type of stuff. But yeah. It's expensive.
It truly is. I mean, Soul's also saying this might be the best version of it. I agree because it felt like it was very chaotic. They obviously didn't give stuff time to breathe, but they gave each individual spot time to breathe. Like they weren't doing 10 billion crazy stuff at the exact same time like they did a couple of years ago. They at least had, waited for each camera to be ready.
I mean, it's very chaotic. With a match like that or Stadium Stampede, you have to know what you're doing because the audience is going to miss stuff. So you got to time it so that they don't.
And they didn't do that the first year. The second year, they got a bit better with it. This year, I thought they nailed it. But Tommy, what do you think? Do you think that they did nail this match, or are we overhyping it?
No, it was fantastic. I mean, the first thing that I thought of was an ode to New Jack when they were having music playing while the match was going on. Just old ECW vibes there with all that stuff. I loved what my favorite part about it was how they transitioned from Jack Perry being drowned to then being set on fire because he had to have all that goo on him. So I thought they did a really good job of making sure that people thought it was water that may have just been all over him. So I thought that they did a really good job there. The timing was a little wonky from when he was trying to pull Tony Khan out to get back on there. But I mean, overall, it was phenomenally done. I love, thumbtacks on the feet for super kicks. It's old PWG stuff that the Bucks were doing. I love that Okada put the sleeve on and then done, the Rainmaker with the thumbtacks. I loved it. I mean, you hit on it where it didn't feel like true, Team AEW. But again, when they were doing the invasion angle in the early 2000s, it wasn't really the WCW mainstays. So I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was great. It was a great way to end the show. Didn't feel like a long time. They did a really good job of everything. And yeah, I mean, I like Jack Perry going over at the end as well. I thought that was a nice touch that they gave him the pin and the win. But yeah, you definitely had to keep the Elite storyline going, and you just it was great. I loved it. Super fun, super crazy. So
yeah, and you mentioned the thumbtacks on the shoes. I mean, that was the funniest thing because this doubled as a sneaker commercial because they were promoting their new Reebok pumps. So I mean, that was funny as well. Like there was adverts going on during this. People were passing around the aux cord arguing about music. There was flamethrowers. It was just everything. I mean, it truly was absolute anarchy, no doubt about it. It really is crazy to me.
It was so good.
Jay Maloney 2181 saying no one is on the level of the devil. And yeah, I mean, MJF being back is certainly very exciting. But Clark, I want to get your thoughts on this, right? anarchy in the arena. We've all made anarchy puns, but what did you think about this absolute chaotic wrestling match?
I wore this t-shirt for a reason. I think this is the only thing that stands up to it. And because of the timing with no fans, Stadium Stampede, the original one, was unbelievable. It meant the world to people at the time. And it was so well done. And to keep the tradition alive and make anarchy in the arena a thing. So cool. So cool. I love that this is a tradition. I love that this is a Double or Nothing tradition. I actually had tickets to the 2020 Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. Wanted to go. Ended up with a full refund and a t-shirt that says I watched it at home because we couldn't leave our houses, which I respect AEW for. It's a great t-shirt. But I love the tradition of this match, and this was, to me, the best version yet since the cinematic era. To you guys' points, I think it's unbelievable. The little kid in me really wanted Sting to push the button on the thing to let Darby down at the end. Like, I get that he's retired, but like, of all people, right? You get it because of the propelling down from the ceiling and everything. Maybe Sting would have access to, he just paints the face one time and just presses a button and then Darby's back in the match. I thought that was the only stone left unturned. Like has already been presented. We had, I believe it was gimmicked flames. Like he learned from CM Punk, you can't use real stuff. So I'm pretty confident that was like a chemistry class experiment of sorts, right? No, that was real flames. Gotta love it. Luke Perry smiling down, rest in peace, great actor, absolutely, and not afraid to do some stunts. Neither is his son Jack. I loved to see that. I thought it was very cool. As far as the spot was concerned, it was executed properly. I get that everybody had to get in there with the good old fire extinguishers, but that's in the interest of safety. It does not make the visual not entertaining. It doesn't take away from the match in any way. I loved it. Darby Allin is a human car accident already, and apparently it's not a problem. Like, he just kind of bounces back from whatever. Like, it's... I loved, Anthony, you mentioned the comparisons to Foley and the comparisons to Jeff Hardy. The thing about Darby to me is, in a weird way, because of the size, it's like you could just dribble him like a basketball and he'll just stand up and be like, oh, have a nice day, and walk away.
Spike Dudley.
It's crazy how the spots he can take, because the normal selling and the normal spots he has within a not anarchy match, sans flamethrowers and car accidents, are violent. He has a skill that not many people in this industry possess, and a charisma to match. I thought Darby stole the show in this match, as he should have. He's built for this match. I think Eddie Kingston, minus an injury, does as well. But if you got to replace Eddie, why not Darby? I'd have rather had both Eddie and Darby if it was my choice. Other than that, though, sublime. I loved the execution of this. It's exactly what it was supposed to be. Purely entertaining.
So,
Ben?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Have I frozen for you guys?
No.
Am I good?
Yeah, you're like
Okay,
literally.
My computer, I think, is having a bit of an issue. Anyway, I completely agree with you, Clark. It is crazy. Darby Allin, I think, won't die. Like, I think that's the thing about him. He's invincible. Like, death has one kryptonite, and that kryptonite is Darby Allin. It's just this guy. You can just. Everybody's telling him, don't do this, it's unsafe. And then even more dangerous stuff happens from in his personal life, and somehow he survives it all. He doesn't die. They say Memsy's agreeing with you that he was also thinking Sting would have saved Darby Allin. And David Marge is saying that would be wild.
I mean, they say cats have 9 lives. Darby's got like 9,000.
Darby's the reason the Grim Reaper has a drinking problem.
Yeah, exactly. Darby's
that is the quote of
Grim
the
Reaper
day.
is at AA.
And on that note, guys, we're going to be ending the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you tomorrow to talk a bit of Monday Night Raw. Thank you to Clark. Thank you to Anthony. Thank you to Tommy for joining me here today. It's been great. And thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And we will see you tomorrow. Peace.